Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day with Mr. Fitzpatrick. He will be leading you through the braking investigation activity today. So I'm very excited. I'm sure that he'll do a wonderful job with you. Okay? All right, I am opening up right now the screen. If you would please find, I gave them to you last time, but please find this worksheet in your folder called Braking Investigations, and there's maybe 2 or 3 pages in this particular packet. The first thing that you'll need to do for this activity is to make predictions. The predictions are it's a velocity versus time graph, and you're going to predict in each of these 3 cases, okay, how this velocity versus time graph will change given the situations that are presented in the lab or on the sheet. So for instance, the first one with mass. It says, draw and label a line that predicts the new shape of the graph if the mass of the car is double the mass of the car represented by the original dashed graph. Okay, so here we have a speed or velocity versus time graph. The car is moving along or the object is moving along at a constant speed until 2 seconds. When the brakes are applied, it then slows down to a stop. So how do you anticipate that this graph will change when the car has double the mass? And so you'll make that prediction and then draw that graph. You will then do the second bullet up here, which is make another prediction when these other circumstances are presented, okay? So in this case, the mass is half. All right, so you'll do that for force and for speed. Just read carefully. Take your time doing that. Mr. Fitzpatrick, I would invite you, or students, if you're doing this on your own, pause this video now so that you can go and make those predictions. And then after you've made the predictions, Mr. Fitzpatrick will lead a small whole class discussion just to collect your ideas and thoughts around each of these graphs, okay? Then come back and I will give instructions for the next part, okay? So time out, go ahead and pause. Okay, hopefully you paused and you've now had the whole class discussion. And so I'm now going to talk a little bit about the braking investigation and the setup. We're going to be using 2 different websites to do this investigation. One is a simulation with little carts, and you'll be changing and manipulating the carts and then making measurements in the simulation. And then the other is the CODAP website where you'll be collecting and analyzing your data, okay? There are 2 parts to the investigation. The first part is kind of a play part where you have a chance to just do any investigation of your choice related to the simulation. This is the collect practice data part, the very first part. Independent and dependent variable of your choice. You'll be able to choose between, let's see, I got to find my key. It looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different variables in the simulation that you can choose as either your independent or your dependent variable, okay? And I'll show you those 4 variables in a minute when I introduce you to the simulation, okay? All right, the second half of the investigation is the one that you're going to do for reals. You're going to go in and choose a independent variable, either the braking force, the mass of the cart, or the initial, velocity of the cart, but everyone will do the same dependent variable for this part of the investigation. Everyone will use stopping time as the dependent variable, okay? So in the column on the right, for both columns, you should write stopping time, okay? And that will be your independent variable, or dependent variable, Okay, let's go ahead and go look at the simulation. You'll access the simulation by going to our Canvas homepage and clicking on Braking Investigation. And once you are in the Braking Investigation, you'll see 2 links, one to the simulation and one to the CODAP. So if you click on both, so that is going to open the Braking Investigation simulation, and then this one will open the CODAP data collection website, okay? So from the simulation, first step, you need to click Setup, Reset over on the left, and that will show you, you have the 2 carts there. You have cart A and cart B. There are various variables that you can adjust. The braking force acting on cart A and B, the mass of cart A and B, and then the initial speed of cart A and cart B. Just for the sake of doing a quick demonstration with you, I'm going to leave the braking force at 1, the mass at 1 for cart A, but I'm going to increase the initial speed of cart A up to, let's just go to 2 meters per second, okay? To get the carts rolling, you'll click on the Go Pause button. And so as the carts are, oops, excuse me, I made a mistake. So it's a good thing I did this. The mistake I made is that after I made a change over here in the green area, I forgot to go over here and hit Setup Reset. So there we go. I've hit Setup Reset. Now these conditions are actually in the simulation, and we should notice cart A move faster than cart B. So here we go. Now I'm going to hit Go, Pause, and the carts start moving. After the carts have moved for a few moments, I'm going to hit Brake, and the brake button allows the cars to now start to slow down and stop in the simulation. You'll notice over here on the left side of the simulation that a speed versus time graph is being generated, and it's the speed versus time graph that you're going to pull your stopping time data from, okay? So in my, if I was doing this for realsies, on my data table on the left, it appears that I've chosen my independent variable to be initial speed. And so for cart A, which is the, this will be my cart A data, I will put as my independent variable, I'll write in initial speed, and then I'll put the value in, and that is 2 meters per second, okay? All right, I need to get the stopping time off of my velocity versus time graph, and right now it's way too small really to see. So there is a small hamburger menu up in the upper right-hand corner of the graph, and if you click on that, it will give you a drop-down menu where you can view in full screen. So I'm going to view this graph in full screen. You'll notice that when I hover my cursor over the graph, it gives me the XY coordinates of the point that I'm hovering over, okay? So I'm going to hover right here at the spot where the brakes are first applied, and it gives me the X coordinate and the Y coordinate. The X coordinate for this one is 1.26, and the Y coordinate is 2. The X-axis is time, and the Y-axis is the velocity. So hovering at this point, it tells me that at 1.25 seconds, the velocity of the cart was 2 meters per second. Now as I go and I follow all the way down here to the bottom, I get to a point where it tells me the velocity, when it's blue, is about 0. It says 0.01. And so at velocity of almost 0, the time was 3.24 seconds, okay? To do the stopping time, I will need to take that final time when the velocity was 0, 3.24, and subtract it from 1.25, okay? So 3.22 minus 1.27, there we go. And that will give me the stopping time, okay? So it's the delta T that I need from when the brakes were applied to when the car was 0. That's the stopping time that I need to record in my data, okay? So exit from full screen. And now let me show you the CodeApp website and how we use that to enter the data, okay? So again, I clicked on the link right here and went into the CodeApp. It will open up to this screen, and do I want to open a document or create a new one? I want to create a new one. So I'm going to click on Create New. Right now the graph is completely blank, there's nothing in there. So I'm going to go first to the tables up here, click on Tables. New from Clipboard or New, I want to create a brand new table. So I click on New, and it opens up a table that has very little information in it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this a little bit so I can see it better. And then right here where it says Attribute Name, I'm going to click on Attribute Name and then rename this. The first column in a data table is always our independent variable, so this for me will be initial velocity or initial speed, okay? And it looks like I want to also include the units, so I'm going to put meters per second in parentheses. I then click outside of that, and it's now saved that first column as initial velocity. I'm now going to hit the plus and add a second attribute or a second column, and I can drag this, here we go, over a little bit to resize it. In that second column, I'm going to rename it, and this is going to be stopping time, and in parentheses I'm going to put a little s there because this is stopping time in seconds. Okay, all right, there we go. Now the two columns are the same size. I'm going to make up some data because I don't have a pre-made data table here. And I'm also going to make up the stopping times. So don't copy my numbers, okay? Because again, I'm just pulling them out of my head right now. So for my initial velocity of 1, let's pretend that the stopping time was 2.0 seconds, okay? So I go and now after clicking outside, it gives me another column. So let's pretend the initial velocity next was 2 and that the stopping time was 3, okay? And then for an initial velocity of 3, let's pretend the stopping time is 4. And then we'll do one more data point. Let's say for an initial velocity of 4, the stopping time was 5. Okay? All right. I'm now going to click outside of this into the graph area. And I'm now ready to graph this data. So I will go right next to the table tab is the graph tab. I'll click on the graph tab. And it opens up a graph. Let's make that a little bigger. Now I notice that it's kind of random, the dots. I don't really understand what I'm seeing. So the nice thing about CODAP is you can grab the head of one of the columns. So the initial velocity, which is the independent variable, we want to graph on the x-axis. So I'm going to click and hold on the head of that column, and I'm going to drag it down to the x-axis. Doink. And then it puts those data points on that axis. And then I click the stopping time and drag it over to the y-axis. Doink. Okay, so there we go. I now have graphed my data. Now we also have the ability over here, let's see, to do some analysis. And I want to make sure that I get to the right place. So on the ruler, okay, let's see if we hit least square line. There we go. So on the ruler, to do a line of best fit, you will go to the button here. You're going to click on ruler and then least squares line, and it will attempt a line of best fit to your data. Okay? All right. I hope that is helpful and that it gets you started on the activity. Again, Mr. Fitzpatrick is very capable and will be there to answer all of your questions. Okay? All right. Thanks, you guys. I look forward to seeing you next week when I'm back.